Hello and welcome. I am Greco, author and founder of The Imperfect Messenger. Today we'll chat briefly on the topic of globalization and a strategy for recovery. Oh yes, there is a great deal of chatter on this topic of globalization and this notion of we are now an internationally dependent nation and what a great success the various trade agreements have been for opening up the world to American exports and what an economic windfall this has been to the U.S. economy. I've got to ask you though, how's this great success of globalization working out for you, for your friends, for your family? Judging from the economic statistics, 8 million lost manufacturing jobs, 14 million and growing unemployed, it appears that for man, the outcome is not particularly good. Globalization was sold to the public using a series of particularly specious arguments. Number one, expanding the markets for American products by creating a quasi-level playing field that would in turn, number two, somehow make Americans more competitive in the global market. There, of course, is a question that continues to remain unanswered, though. How is it that we make ourselves more competitive in the global market by exporting our productive industries, our manufacturing capability, and our technological leadership? The equivalent form of this rather peculiar logic is something along the lines of, I will give away my home so that I can buy it back. Please, don't look for it to make sense. It doesn't. Ever. The U.S. economy is in the state it is for many reasons, and there are many events and various sequences which explain how it all occurred. The Blind Vision series offers a great commentary on these points, and as you would expect, I suggest one should obtain a copy. However, for now, let's just cover a few quick points. First of all, know that there is no cart before the horse issue at play in this process. Actually, I believe it's more likely, perhaps equivalent to two horses pulling the same cart in opposite directions. One horse being enterprise, the other being government's insatiable desire for power and control. In the middle, of course, is the cart, which is you, and what I refer to as the native economy, which is largely ignored, and, of course, rest assured, the genesis of all economic activity. That is, the kinetic force of demand in search of supply. The monetary theorists of the day dare not attest to this simple fact that the reason for the growth in both structural deficits and so-called advanced economies' inability to spend their way out of it is, of course, in my opinion, a function of the following points. Number one, degradation in domestic, that is, the native economic development. Number two, overtaxation of non-corporate interests. That is, remember, corporate tax revenues have been plummeting for years while individual tax burdens have exploded. Number three, diminishing household income, again related to number one above, that is the degradation in the domestic economy. Number four, increase in non-discretionary spending directly related to 1, 2, and 3 herein. Number five, hypercurrency creation directly related to fiat monetary policy and fiat capital creation. Number six, over-reliance on the global economy theory of expanded markets being equal to expanded wealth modeling. And these are, of course, to name just a few. The summation might appear this way. As corporate interests have moved away from domestic financial stewardship, currently they've effectively rallied the government to enable them to do the same. The results of which have been diminishing tax revenues on the corporate level in exchange for increased burden on the household sector. As corporations have become less nation-state conscious, they have also managed to exchange their productive capacity for effective profits based largely on their ability to avoid taxation, as there is no documented evidence to authenticate that corporate profits growth is based on the cheap labor argument. The net effect of all of this is the near simultaneous convergence of an economic malaise brought about by the disincentive of productive wealth-creating practices. So then, what is an American to do? First, be sure and read Volume 3, Valor and Prosperity, for all of the details, but for now, here are a few to consider. Number one, the American people need to decide and align under a common ideal. Without this, two carts pulling in opposite directions is all that will occur. A part of this alignment we should consider two. States should prohibit partisan ballot elections. You may want to run as a Democrat or a Republican, but you may not control the ballot box in the process of it. Number three, return the selection of state senators to the respective states' legislative bodies, or at the very least, prohibit out-of-state contributions from national parties or other state senators' war chests. Number four, reassert and establish the once sovereign notion of states' rights, the 10th Amendment, by depoliticizing state legislatures and government. Then, of course, through the ballot box, begin to enforce states' rights against the federal government. Number five, immediately reformulate the Internal Revenue Code away from punitive taxation on productive income. Number six, prohibit the federal government from engaging in entitlement apportionment and completely abandon the current Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare systems and restore self-funding systems out of reach of government plundering of these systems' funds. Number seven, prohibit union collective bargaining efforts and functions in all government occupations. And number eight, restore the role of education as a bastion for learning and not for social engineering. A national ideal administered only at the local level. Provide choice in education and you'll ensure performance. These are just a few of the many issues discussed in Valor and Prosperity, and the people need to explore these volumes if for no other reason to consider what it is that you don't know and is not even being considered. But this is only part of the point, as in the end, it is not possible to claim one is an individual in possession of one's inalienable rights of freedom and liberty, particularly when freedom and liberty are not among the choices offered. And that's all there is to say about that. At the Imperfect Messenger Foundation, we are always on point, on purpose, in practice. And so, be a part of a life-changing experience by making your voice count. After all, you too are a messenger.